way to, I'm curious how you get creative and come up with those new posts all the time. How do you do that?
It's crazy.
Anybody else have a problem writing? Anybody?
Yeah. So, there's times where it's literally as simple as, the best is when you wake up in the morning with an idea of what you already know, or something jumps out at you and you go, yep, that's what I'm gonna do today. I am addicted to Instagram. I actually find a lot of inspiration there, and I think the reason that I love it is because it's original. Well, most people are using original content on it, and so you're kind of seeing in the moment kind of what's coming up. And it's the only form of social media that I really pay attention to and allow to inspire me. Pinterest is great in that you see a lot and you can kind of dig deeper and follow these links and stuff. But for me, it's really about actually tuning a lot of that out and staying true to yourself and what's inspiring you in the moment. And so when you're talking about kind of creative ruts or how to get out of them or how to come up with these genuine is it's a hard place to come from when you're inundated with visual things all the time. I think I love to go back and look at, I have a bunch of old interior design books from like the 70s and stuff like that, or I go to the art museum, or I get out of town and just go on a road trip, or it's getting out of my space that really helps me to be like, okay, what am I really loving right now? What am I really feeling right now? And giving yourself the, it's kind of like with my readers, I feel like there's an expectation of what should I talk about that day. If I talked about interior design one day, then I need to talk about fashion the next day, or I need to talk, you give yourself these rules. And for me, it's like, I have to kind of go, okay, stop with the rules and just blog about what you love. And like we host art walks here once a month for First Thursday, and today I was like, okay, what am I going to blog about tomorrow? And I'm so bored with everything right now. And I realized that I had taken all these photos from our last art walk and was just going to put them up on our 95 Yesler Facebook page and whatever. I'm like, why don't I blog about art walk? That's something that's original to me. Nobody else can replicate that. We have an amazing group of people here who all contributed to it. I'm going to blog about that. So for me, I've kind of hit this point where originality is probably the most valuable thing you can bring to this very cluttered space right now. And Seattle is not talked about enough. Like, we have so many amazing things going on right now. So I've started focusing on that. That's kind of my next niche, which is so ironic because it's like you try so hard to be big and like, all my readers come from New York and you're just like, yeah, people read me in London and Sydney, and I'm like, I'm going to talk about Seattle because it's what's important to me right now, and I think we're offering so much in the design world. So it's hard. You have to kind of take this step back and realize, like, where is this coming from, and being true to you, and also realizing that you have a lot to bring to the table that maybe you see every day and take for granted, but others don't. So that's kind of been my recent revelation, I guess.
I like that.
Was trained as a designer, but running your own business is not necessarily doing what you're trained to do. When I first started, there were two of us. It was me and one other designer. And every day I was working on projects. I was definitely doing what I loved. And as we've grown, as we've become more successful, just in the last 2 years, we're now almost 10 people. And my role has dramatically changed. I now spend the majority of my time creative directing, reading emails, just sort of juggling calendars. It's all getting much easier now that Anne is helping me.
But it has been a challenge to figure out, how do I stay inspired? How do I see the creative aspect of my job, even though it wasn't what I set out to be creative doing? And I found that lately, so I think there are a handful of different ways that I get inspired. The day-to-day one that is my just go-to is sort of shutting all of that off, which is very, very hard to do. I have to find a way to let myself not think about all of the emails, all of the meetings tomorrow, all of the phone calls, all of the things that maybe didn't go quite right or that won't go quite right tomorrow. Like, all of that stuff is so overwhelming and becomes quite intimidating that if I actually have a creative problem to solve, I have to find a way to not think
To get on
about
an
it.
airplane that doesn't have internet.
Oh, that was even worse for me. Then I'm like, oh, what do I do? But I think getting off of the internet is a really, really big thing. So just like what you were saying, there is such a culture of sharing creativity right now that there's this sense that everything's been done. There's this sense that everything has been done better, that everyone's getting rewarded for all of these things. You know, there is just this like intimidating culture of reward, which when you're getting the reward is amazing. It is so addicting and so exciting, but you most of the time are not getting applause in that situation. And I think that the easiest, simplest thing that I do to shut it all off is kind of exercise, but not exercise. I don't exercise. I don't like to be uncomfortable. It's not fun. So there are things that are like active without being stressful and like being with that.
Do share.
Playing catch. Like just going out in the backyard and playing catch with my husband. Hands down, no matter what. If we go out there and we throw a baseball back and forth or a kickball, without a doubt, we end up talking about all of the things that I want to solve anyway, and it's just this like free, distracted association, and it just works every time. Walking my dogs works. There's just this like being outside, being active, but not being so focused on a treadmill or whatever it is that I would normally be doing an exercise. So I think the combination of being actively distracted is a really, really good one.
That's why I say the idea is kind of in the shower, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this is exercising. That counts. So there's that, but then I think there are also bigger needs of inspiration. That's sort of day to day. That's problem solving. I was talking a little bit earlier about reaching a point where I realized that my job was awful and my life was awful and my marriage was awful, and I think that is a different kind of inspiration need. Like, you have to be inspired to live life and to go out and do whatever it is you want to do. And I think that any sort of uncomfortable education is the best way to do that, at least for me. So grad school was a really, really big one. Going back to school was terrible. I cried at least once a day for 3 years straight. It was one of the worst hellish experiences in my life. I was poor, I was lost, I had to meet all new people, I was in a city that I didn't know, I had to take the bus, and I hate taking the bus, and I had to do all of these things that were just like terrible, 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 terrible. And at the end of it, I had a totally new understanding of life and confidence in myself and permission to do whatever I wanted to do. And it was hands down the best experience that I've ever had. I actually don't feel like I necessarily use my degree that much, but I use the permissions that I got there and the inspiration there. On a smaller scale, I've tried to do that by taking a flying lesson, which I'm never going to actually learn to fly, but you can go and just fly a plane once. And it's so scary, and it's so exciting. Taking a cooking lesson, going to the gun range, learning how to shoot a gun.
It's on my wish list.
I'll teach you. You haven't done it yet?
No.
I'll teach you. That'll be so inspiring. I have been saving singing lessons for like when I really need some inspiration. It's on my list right now.
So
I'm researching it.
all scary things.
Yes.
Okay.
Really, really scary things that I don't necessarily care about the outcome, but that I'm gonna feel. This is happening right now.
Wait, you don't like to public speak?
I hate public speaking.
Well,
But
like
everyone
it's
always
exciting.
says travel, but that's not always feasible. So
Yeah.
it's like finding that next best thing in a
Yeah.
way that kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
You know,
and you
the-
can't help but wake up like ready the next day.
The thing that's interesting that I like what you were talking about is that, like, earlier you were talking about rewards for like everything that's out there, but like going into those uncomfortable situations, not expecting that like you're gonna fucking own a plane and fly planes every weekend, like you're gonna take your friends places, or that you're gonna be like
I'm not Beyonce.
you're not gonna be Beyonce, but like, you know, like having those like risks,
Yeah.
but not placing a lot of pressure or expectation behind all of them, because now we live in a world where like, well, if you're gonna learn how to bake a cake, you better bake the best looking cake, and that
And
Instagram
better
photo
picture.
better be fucking good, right? Like, I like that idea of just like, you're gonna go through that education, but it doesn't matter if anyone pats you on the back at the end.
I
I like it.
So much of it is, and I guess I haven't thought about it like this way before, but it is being inspired by yourself. Like you're never going to answer whatever the creative question is. You're never going to come up with that idea if you don't rebuild that confidence. And there's no faster way to do that. To just try something and realize I didn't expect it necessarily, but I'm totally capable of doing this thing I never could have imagined doing. You're gonna solve the other question.
Wow, love it. That's new. That's new content.
And so for me, I mean, we can talk about what they just did, and I think that we all share a lot of different ways for finding inspiration, but for me, I love people. I love connecting with people that are not doing what I'm doing. I love people that are, you know, it's hard for me, but hearing people that don't agree with what I'm doing, or they think what I'm doing is a farce, or they don't believe in it, and having them question you, and it, but I think most recently for me, in looking to scale Ivogene, which has been a struggle for me, I wanted to ask a question. Can I ask a question first? How many of you consider yourself creatives? Okay. How many of you consider yourself business-minded? How many of you consider yourself both? Okay, cool. I just wanted like some because I think that's such a hard part. You know, you talk about this inspiration as being a creative or an artist or designer, and then you think about inspiration as a business owner and entrepreneur. So for me, most recently growing Ivogene for the last year and a half, I gave myself a certain amount of time to say, if I don't hit these benchmarks, we look for a different way to do things. Well, I hit that benchmark and we didn't meet the goals. So I think for me, you know, I've been having to find inspiration for how to grow my business, for how to do it a different way if that doesn't work. I don't know what to do. I just know the way that I've been doing it so far. And I think that a lot of us that run companies on our own, when you don't have that voice to bounce back with, I mean, you're just constantly struggling to find that inspiration to do it differently, to do it better, to grow faster, to expand a market, to enter a new market, and it's super scary. And so recently, I have so many friends in the tech community, and so for me, talking to them about how they grow things and how they learn, and this idea of like failing fast and try something, if it doesn't work, don't do it, you know, reach out to your network and find new stories or ways that other people have done it. I mean, I think we have this like huge wealth of resource in other entrepreneurs, not even entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, business owners. Hell, your friend that stays home with her kid, I don't care. Like, everybody has a perspective. My husband's a huge person. He comes from a totally different industry. So I think finding different people's perspectives on what you're doing, and how, not necessarily just their opinions on how you're doing what you're doing, but how they're doing what they're doing, and what their story is, what their struggles are, how have they fought through growth. Because more often than not, there's a lesson in there to be learned. and there's a knowledge base that you might not have as a solo entrepreneur. And so for me, more recently, I have a couple of, I'm in this like sort of sad moment with the company that I feel almost happy about. It's really weird. I'm sure, you go through those phases. Has anyone like gone through that phase where you're like, shit is not going right? But I still feel good. Like I still feel like whatever happens next will be, like it will be if it is and it won't if it's not, but I'm gonna keep fighting in a way that feels good for me. So I have one friend that runs a company called Baby List, and it's a universal baby registry, and she's just killing it. I mean, she was in 500 startups. She is now valued at like $5 million. She has 8 staff. She's in Oakland, and they're just doing so incredible. And so having someone coming from the tech side and talking to me about like what I can do from a digital perspective, or hearing stories about her reaching out to other people as brand ambassadors or people that will help promote her, I'm like, oh gosh, who could I reach out to the way that you are? And not only that, but her perspective of like, you have a network out there. You have all of these people that maybe haven't done exactly the same thing that you've done, but that have perspectives. And what that did was give me the courage to say, oh yeah, I'm just gonna start contacting people. It was something that I'd always done, but in the phase of, I don't know anything, will you please help me? Now I'm a proven, I think it took a lot of vulnerability for me to start saying, I've been doing this for 3 years. You think I'm way bigger than I am. And now I really need help because I'm gonna fail if I don't get it. And so I think that moment of vulnerability and reaching out to someone at that stage is a lot harder than being a nobody and trying to figure out where to get your clothing made in Seattle. Now I'm saying, I'm reaching out to you because I admire your business model. And I need to scale or I have to close my doors. And so that idea really came from that conversation with her. And the tech community is so supportive of each other. Like they are all, for the most part, are all really like in startups together, like all in startup mode. They share resources. It's crazy. So that was a huge thing for me with her. And then I have another friend who, they're both industrial designers, architects, and industrial designers, and they're working on an indoor planting system. And these girls are just so hungry. I mean, they're just so hungry and they're so smart that all I need to do is like go watch them pitch their product or go out to coffee or drinks with them and hear what they're doing. And it's just like, you watch other people be so fired up about what they're doing, and it is like magic. It is all of the sudden that energy is your energy. And really taking advantage of those people that have it. Because if you're alone, we know the lows are low, but the highs are pretty high. So when other people are on a high around you, hang out with them. Like latch on, like take it. So that's a huge thing for me. And yeah, I know that that's not realistic for everyone. Not a lot of people are, I don't know what the percentages are, but not everybody's an extrovert. Not everyone thrives off other people's energy the way that I do.
How many of you are extroverts in this room? Really? That's a lot. Usually it's all introverts.
I would never believe that.
I know, but I am. I
You're like a fake
my
extrovert.
alone time. I'm really good at faking extrovert. Where it's definitely great to get energy from other people, but I feel like I was where you are now about a year ago, and I still haven't figured it out, but I hit this point.
Don't tell her that.
Kelly.
Yeah. It takes a while.
She knows I'm not failing.
We spend most days together.
Yeah. I've just kind of hit a turning point, but what motivated me the most was kind of that spirit of when you are first starting out and you're like so hungry for it, how do you get that back? And for me, it was if somebody came to me tomorrow and took my blog away, what would I regret not doing with it? And it wasn't like a motivator in the sense where I was like, yes, now I know what I want to do. It was more just like, okay, but like if this was gone tomorrow, what would you regret, and what would you regret not doing with it, or what would you say, like, I missed this opportunity. So for me, some of that was, well, I have this amazing brand that I would love to turn into a product line, or maybe write a book, or, you know, take advantage of using it as a platform for a voice for other, you know, people in Seattle who are small business people, or whatever it is, and kind of finding that inspiration again of making it something new and giving yourself different types of goals, because I think when you're starting a business, you're also very idealistic in that it's like the world is your oyster and I don't know what it's going to be, but let's just do it because it's going to be amazing and fun. And then once you've done that for a few years, you're like, I'm exhausted and I can't even imagine getting that energy back to that level. But that question, yeah, motivated me to really kind of be like, no, look, you've got something amazing here. You're doing well. Like, get over it and get off your ass.
You can
and
say that about anything in life.
Yeah, and like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And like figure out, like, if tomorrow it was all taken away from you, not like, I mean, I hate to get dramatic, like if you died tomorrow, you know, but like that idea of what would you really regretted not doing with what you have, whether that's connections or that's friendships or it's your business or whatever. You're right, you can translate to everything, but that was a big thing for me.
I think one side of that is also really, and you actually only realized this a couple weeks ago, is really celebrating all of your successes to date.
Yes.
Because you can only be okay with it being taken away if at any point in time you can say, I've done this, we got this client, we grew to this point, like this is all amazing. And being able to constantly have a running list of your successes, it gives you this freedom to say, if it's gone tomorrow,
Right.
I still killed it. Even if it fails, I still
Yeah.
killed it for a while, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you can take those risks, and you can
Yeah.
still, you can do what you want.
Yeah, we stop celebrating in the moment, I think, because we're like, great, moving on to the next
Yeah.
thing.
It was-
And, yeah.
That's an interesting, I know it's not exactly where we're talking about, but I always think about the fact that when I first started, if someone would have told me that I was going to be in like Fast Company and Elle Finland and PSFK and all of these things, I would have been like, hell yes, girl. Like, way to go. You have totally succeeded. I was won a huge daily candy contest. But I'll tell you what, I get one customer email that was like, I'm so disappointed in this. And I cannot stop thinking about it for a week, 2 weeks, until I have fixed it. You know, so it's interesting, like, celebrating those successes that you have allows you to take those risks and get re-inspired. And to not, you know, like, fix those things that don't go so great, but, like, allow yourself to celebrate the successes that you've had and not just feel bad about the failures.
Yeah, I like that. We only have a couple of minutes. Do you guys have any questions or comments on this for them? That we're going to break up into small groups and keep the discussion going, but right now as a big group, does anybody want to say anything?
I wish I'd written notes. And I've taken away the inspiration. I mean, that's really what's important. It's not. There were some great things said tonight that have really inspired. But I think, one of the more recent things was your perspective of, yes, it's really great. We're really idealistic when we start out, whether it's, you know, our business or a new job or whatever. But it's like I'm taking on the world, and the true maturity is when you go on the bumps and
It's like a marriage. It's
and
just
fall
like
down and
any
get back up.
relationship. Yeah.
And I love that was explored and create. And I love what you said about the creativity suck that you went through and how we can. But we need each other to re-inspire. So that's why I'm here.
There's a great book talking about that dip. Is Seth Godin. I recommend The Dip. It's so good. Did you read it?
Read it.
Go read it. Read it, girl.
Cool.
It's so good. It's about recognizing, like, you have to be prepared to come on the other side of it, or you got to give up before you get to the bottom. You know, you've got to be prepared to end up at the top of the other side of it, or just tap
And
out.
all creation comes from a vacuum. You just reminded me of that one. So
Yeah.
Nice, thank you.
Well, thank you. I loved all of your perspectives, and that's what I love about conversation and just being more vulnerable. Is I love that you're out talking to people and getting inspiration, and that's why I love coming to these every month myself, because I hang out in my basement and I'm kind of an introvert myself and don't really get out that much, even though I do put on events for a living. But it's not like every day. So getting out there and just getting the energy from other people is what I thrive on too. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Thank you all.